So we are back, and we were just talking about one of Alex's favorite topics, AI slop. So what is it? What happens? How do you avoid it? What are your thoughts around the AI? And we need to define for our audience what it is as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to keep this one at 2 minutes. Maybe it'll go three because I'll rant and rave on this one. It's so AI slop is noise, right? AI slop is the content that is really easy for anyone to effectively create and publish, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, in any environment. And there's a couple of reasons why it's something you probably want to avoid. The first reason is that, I think generally speaking, if you publish content, you want to be thinking about, serving your audience, right? So how do I create, something that I think is really, quite valuable or useful, and you want to share it with your community, just like a musician, thinks about how do I create art that's fantastic, that I think is really great, and hopefully an audience develops around it and they listen to your music. But if you're just pressing a chat GPT button and you're just publishing for the sake of publishing, you're just adding more noise into the environment. But where it can get a little bit dangerous and a big watch out is, and I think we all unfortunately have had this experience, more recently, is you've seen in the last like 3 or so months more and more and more, people, individuals, executives or otherwise, publishing more and more content on LinkedIn in particular. And sometimes it's really good content that's enhanced by these AI tools because it sits at the intersection of their domain expertise and other dimensions of research, and it's what they know. But where it gets problematic is when they are publishing content that is in the AI slop category that might appear on the surface to be strategic and informed and valuable. And if and when that happens, you get into trouble if you outsource the logic to the machines, because then all of a sudden someone might perceive you to be an expert in that subject. And then when they get you into an environment like this, which is synchronous for us, Steve and Tati, where we're talking, you can ask me any question you'd like. If you ask me a hard question about something that I've published on my LinkedIn or Twitter or my newsletter and podcast, et cetera, you're going to get all sorts of responses because it's my logic, it's my IP, et cetera. But if it's not, and I outsource it to a machine, can you imagine how awful I'm going to look? Because I'm not going to have any idea what you're talking about. I won't be able to go even an inch deep on it. Or if I do try to go an inch deep, I'm going to reveal that I obviously don't know what I'm talking about. And that will cause you to lose a lot more credibility than you might have thought you would gain by putting something out there that might have been perceived to be smart, when in reality it's just very damaging, and it's just more noise. So that's AI slop in a nutshell, and why I'm really not a fan of it. I don't think it's anyone's interest to do that, other than potentially those that are in the business of monetizing the content, which that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, generally, I would steer very far clear of it.
Yeah, I think there's an aspect of authenticity, right? And we sort of are in this era of there's so much AI generated content out there, whether or not it's written content or now video content. There's some amazing things that on the video side are coming out, but you can tell right away it's not authentic. So there's still the kind of concept of human enabled AI and authenticity, where there's humans, you can use AI tools to create certain content, to create a point of view, but you really have to add your own secret sauce and that kind of human enabled piece of it and authenticity. So there's a lot of need to still have that kind of brain power associated with whether or not it's content or even music production. There's so many tools out there. You mentioned music and art. There's so many tools out there that create content in those spaces now too, but there's still the aspect of creativity and artists that you need to have within those platforms.
Yeah, I'll just jump all over that too. There was an article I read in MIT Tech Review. I think it was basically referred to as the creativity issue. And one of the gnarly creative technologists said something to the effect of it's never been easier to create but that's not what it means to be creative. And sometimes you need to enable folks to kind of fall down and fail and iterate when it comes to creativity, because that's how you kind of get better. And if you take that away by just using, the ChatGPT button, I think that it'll be a short-lived exercise. I think we're in a moment in time, and it's gonna, evolve and go in different directions. But yeah, I agree with you. And I also think back to the previous conversation we just had, Tati and Steve. I think, there are wonderful ways to enable, senior leaders to automate away some dimensions of the, let's say, insight gathering, content interpretation, content organizing, et cetera. But it's always got to have that human voice. It's always got to ultimately be your logic, your thought process, your POV, enabled and enhanced by other tools and stuff. But you just want to make sure that you do your own homework, as they say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of junk food out there for AI as well. So, we talk about this all the time, but I will share a couple of thoughts on this. One is around, the amount of content that's out there with folks that are just saying, AI is going to change the world, and super generic terms about everything, and they're all repeating the same things, using a moment that's quite obviously a moment where a lot of folks are looking for direction. A lot of folks are kind of lost with everything that's out there, and they're looking for help, so they're presenting themselves as the expert there. But that's no different than, in a way, I'm going to make a provocative comment here on this, because it is obviously a much bigger scale and much more difficult potentially to tell it apart. But it's the same, we've had forever, you've had the consultants that are impersonating someone that they never actually were, right? That they were consulting on something that they never actually did. Or you have folks that, very, very large, sometimes very big names that are using a template to, in a way, it's the same concept, right? I'm going to use a template, I'm going to put your name on, and I'm going to pretend, we're all going to pretend, you're going to pay me a few $1 million, and we're all going to pretend this is made for you, when it's truthfully not made for you. And by the way, the person that's doing it is not someone who knows what they're doing. So I'll say that, we could go on and on about all of this. You all know how I feel, but I think that the expertise helps in a few different ways, right? And identifying that is crucial. One is, you need that diagnostics, you need the root cause to be understood before the AI deployment. So that's one thing, and you can only really get that with people who can identify the right problem. And that cannot be, AI cannot replace that. You need to have that operational expertise, customer expertise, specifically tied to what we're talking about. It's real solutions tied to outcomes, tied to real problems, not just experimentation for the sake of, we talk about the deploying pilots for the sake of pilots. It's not it. And I think that it's the ability to do this and to see this and to turn this strategy into real life execution, which again, AI cannot replace that. AI can have this, the nice words, and it can sound really smart with these things, and it can sound like it knows what it's talking about, but it doesn't. And I would say from a personal development perspective, I enhance my work with AI all the time, but I'll also tell you that I am guiding, I'm holding his hand the entire time, because otherwise what's coming out there is not right.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that, because I that's so spot on. I think it's like where my mind goes is compression of time to value. Mm-hmm. And I'm a bottoms up guy generally at this stage with all this stuff, just because there's just so much going on. But I think if you were to sit down as a business person in any capacity that's not, inside of product and engineering, right? Because they have a bit more of an understanding of the technical lens. But if you were to sit down and just record a video of the 5 things that really irritate you about the day-to-day, meaning the friction, right? Meaning, and this is not like you have to understand the technology or the data sets or what's possible, but just day-to-day, what's taking you away from the 20% that's driving 80% of your results? And then you enable people with an expert multidimensional lens to better understand how to go about solving for that problem. That's also something you could do, and this is where you can use these systems quite effectively to ask them to help you understand how you should be thinking about that. problem or problem set, because it gets pretty interesting when you use these LLMs as thought partners. When you give them mental models around how you're thinking about something, it's pretty astounding. And that right there is where I think it's really great, because you're using your subject matter expertise and your deep domain knowledge to say, here are these 5 very specific nuanced territories that I wish I could improve. How should I think about this? And then watch what the models come back with. But to your point, Tati, at the end of the day, taste really matters. So what the system kicks out has to obviously be interpreted through a lens of what's feasible, what's real, what's doable. And you'll see when you query back and you say, hey, well, you mentioned this, but what about this? Oh, that's a great idea. We should consider that. It's like, well, why didn't you say that? It's like, AI.
Yeah, when we talk about domain expertise a good amount, and I think that is kind of the key concept, right? Is like using the AI tools, but you have to be a domain expert to really apply it to that domain. And I think that'll continue. But what will be really interesting in the next couple of years is the bottling up of various different industry expertise and the domain expertise into software as a service, into agents, into you name it, and then how that enables other individuals within that particular domain, right? So we're going to see like the CMO AI solutions, the CFO solutions, the COO, CTO solutions.
Steve, you're going to scare people. Did you say CMO in a bottle by AI? Careful.
We'll see them, right? We're going to see them, and they're going to come out.
I don't know. Maybe CMO 2.0 enhanced humans plus machines, remember?
Correct. But like companies will come out with it, right? And I think the real authenticity of that, right, going back to that word, is you're taking somebody's domain expertise, their brain, and how do you apply it to a particular application, to service offering, whatever it may be, and that's where those companies that do that are going to shine. And we'll see that left and right. You're already starting to see it with just the agents that keep coming out, right? Like, the concept of just agents doing work all at once, right? One agent doing this, one agent doing that. So I think the trick in how we evolve and how work evolves is the ability to use those tools in your particular domain, and then what automation comes out of that domain. So should be an interesting time in the next couple of years, and some will excel and some will thrive, and others it will be just ChatGPT white labeled, right? So we'll see.
One of my most favorite, you guys know this analogy very well. One of my most favorite ones is that you could buy me the $1,000 sneakers, but I still won't win the marathon if I don't run.
Right.
So it's, this is it, and getting the right. And I love the invitation. The invitation is open to send us that Loom video so we can talk to you, because one of the most valuable things you can get on your corner now is someone that can help you discern noise from real knowledge, from real value. Because if you don't know what you don't know, right? If you don't know anything about marketing and you get that ChatGPT marketing plan, you may or may not be able to discern that. And it's a scary place to be as a business owner, as a business leader. So get the right people on your corner. So.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What's
awesome. Interesting too, Alec, what you said around, the concept of, solving 5 or so problems that a particular business has. I think that's going to be really interesting too, because there's this concept of like sending your problems to AI and having come back with an answer, right? But there's a lot of opportunity as well that AI gives you. And I think that there's an amazing opportunity for people that don't understand AI in its depth to actually be able to be enabled through AI and through companies that support AI to be able to solve those problems. It's kind of getting back to what we talked earlier around the art of the possible, right? What's possible within their business, within their domain, that can be solved with some of these tools or this expertise that's out there. So, I think there's a lot that's still greenfield in this space.
For sure. We're going to cut it there. I think we just figured out our next one, Good to see you guys. That was excellent.